Okay, the student wants to emphasize how hot the sun is relative to nearby stars. Okay. So astronomer studied the difference in surface temperatures between the sun and nearby stars. His team mapped all stars with 10 parsecs of the sun. The surface temperature of the sun is around 9,800 degrees, which classifies it as a G star. 327 of the 357 stars in the study were classified as K or M stars with surface temperatures of 8,900, cooler than the sun. So most were cooler than the sun. 11 of the 357 in the study were classified as A or F with surface temperatures greater than the sun. So most are cooler than the sun, and very few are greater than the sun. So we want to emphasize how hot the sun is. Okay, well, it's nearly 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit hotter. So at around 9,800 was classified as a G star. The sun is hotter than most, but not all the stars within 10 parsecs of it. Okay, that's true. Let's keep going. Astronomer Todd Henry determined that the sun at around 9,800 degrees is a G star and several other stars. Okay, that doesn't say anything about how hot it is relative, right? We need the relative part, which A has, B does not. Of the 357 stars within 10 parsecs, 327 are classified as KM stars. The surface temperatures, again, there's no relative difference. I don't get the sun's temperature there. That's wrong. D, well, most of the stars within 10 parsecs of the sun are classified as KM, A, or F. The sun is classified as a G. Again, that's not a relative difference. The only answer that shows a relative temperature difference is A. The student wants to emphasize a similarity between the two paintings. So we've got German-American artist Lutz painted Washington crossing the Delaware. His huge painting depicts the first U.S. president crossing the river with soldiers in the Revolutionary War. 2019 artist Monkman painted Wooden Boat People, Resurgence of the People. Monkman's huge painting was inspired by Lutz's. It portrays indigenous people in a boat rescuing refugees. So the similarities, they're huge, and they're showing somebody sort of rescuing or, moving forward to some kind of positive event or outcome. So Monkman, a Cree artist, finished his painting in 2019. No, that's a difference. They were very different times. Although Monkman's painting was inspired by Lutz, the people and actions are very different. Again, that's emphasizing the differences. We need similarity. Lutz and Monkman's paintings are both huge. That definitely fits the bill. Okay, that's probably going to be it. It's a definite similarity. Lutz's painting depicts Revolutionary War soldiers, Monkman's indigenous. That's a difference, not a similarity. C is the answer. Student wants to present the significance of the Hart-Celler Act to an audience familiar with the history of U.S. immigration. So we want unfamiliar with the history of U.S. immigration. So we have to give some history of U.S. immigration. In the early 60s, the U.S. had a strict national origins quota for immigrants. This would probably be included. The number of new immigrants allowed from a country each year is based on how many people from that country lived in the U.S. in 1890. Okay, so we probably want to see this background. If they're unfamiliar, we need to make them familiar with that information. And then we want to say, why is the Hart-Celler Act important? This system favored immigrants from Northern Europe. Almost 70% of slots were reserved for immigrants from Great Britain, Ireland, and Germany. The 65 Hart-Celler Act abolished the national origins quota system. So most people came from 3 countries. The 65 Act changed that. That's really the importance of it. Okay, so almost 70% of the slots were reserved for immigrants from Great Britain and Ireland at the time the Hart-Celler Act was proposed. That says nothing about the significance and doesn't really give us familiarity. Prior to the Hart-Celler Act, new immigration quotas were based on how many people from each country lived in the U.S. in 1890. Doesn't tell us the significance of the act. The quota system in place in the early 60s was abolished. Nope, that's just a fact, not a significance. The 65 Hart-Celler Act abolished the national origins quota system. So it's telling us what the act did, what its significance is, and which favored immigrants from Northern Europe. So that's giving us some description for those who are unfamiliar with what it is. D is going to be our answer. Student wants to emphasize the different roles in which Australia's invertebrate animals are classified. So the different roles, not the same, but the differences. So roughly 96% of Australia's estimated species are invertebrates, okay? So most are invertebrates. Invertebrates are of the order Hymenoptera, which consists of sawflies, wasps, bees, ants, are estimated at 14,800. Invertebrates of the order Coleoptera, which consist of beetles and weevils, are estimated to total 28,000 in Australia. Okay, so we've got 200,000 invertebrates. We've classified 15,000, almost 30,000. Some of these invertebrate populations are threatened by invasive bird and fish species. Okay, so we want to emphasize the different orders in which they're classified. So these are the different orders, okay? They're only a small portion of the whole amount, though. Okay, so in Australia, 20,000 are estimated to be beetles and weevils, both classified as invertebrates of the order. That's just one. That's not showing any difference. Among Australia's invertebrates, sawflies, wasps, bees belong to this order, while beetles and weevils belong to this other order. That could well be. That is emphasizing the different orders. Many sawflies, wasps, and ants of the Hymenoptera are threatened by some of the invasive birds. That's not showing a difference of the orders. The order Hymenoptera is estimated to make up 14,000 Australia. Again, that's not a difference. B is the only one that compares, or really not compares, shows a contrast or the difference. Different orders, not so much the differences between them, but identifies the different orders. The student wants to emphasize a difference, again, a difference between two portraits. Okay, let's look at them and what's different. Enriquez is an artist. He specializes in portraits of Mexican Americans. A portrait is an artistic representation of a person. Enriquez completed a painting of the sculptor Luis Jimenez in 2003. He completed a drawing of the writer Rodolfo Anaya in 2016. So we want to know the difference between the two portraits. Okay, this is a portrait. This is not a portrait. Well, it is. It's a drawing. It just has to be a representation. So he specializes in portraits of Mexican Americans. Jimenez and Anaya, I assume they're both Mexican Americans. One's a painting, one's a drawing. The dates are different. These are the differences between the two. So the portrait or artistic representation of Luis Jimenez were both completed in the early 2000s. That's a similarity. Enriquez has completed portraits of numerous Americans, including these guys. That's not highlighting or emphasizing a difference. While it's contrasting. This tells me this might be right. While both are by Enriquez, the 2003 portrait is a painting, and the 2016 portrait is a drawing. Yes, those are the differences. C is your answer. D. Jimenez was a Mexican-American sculptor, and Rodolfo was a Mexican-American writer. Nope, that's a similarity. They're both Mexican-American. C is the answer that shows a difference in the portraits. The student wants to emphasize how Romney wool differs from Merino and Rambouillet wool. So we want to know how they differ, okay? Wool is a natural, economically important fiber. It's obtained from animals like sheep. Australia is a leading producer of wool. The thickness of wool fiber varies across sheeps. Merino sheep produce fine wool that's used for apparel. Rambouillet sheep produce fine wool as well that is used for apparel. These are literally the same. Romney sheep produce thick wool that is used for rugs and blankets. So we want to know the difference between Romney, which is thick, and Merino and Rambouillet, which are both fine. That's the difference. The fine is used for apparel. The thick is used for rugs, blankets. So Romney wool is just one of many kinds of wools. Nope, that's not the difference. Sheep wool varies from breed to breed. So this saying it's different does not show or emphasize the differences. The fine wool produced by this Rambouillet Merino is used for apparel. True. Whereas contrasting, this is good since we want to show differences. We typically see contrasting transitions. The thicker wool of Romney sheep is used in rugs and blankets. That's going to be our answer. That's it. Wool is an economically important fiber that says nothing about differences between the two. Okay, the student wants to emphasize a similarity. So the sameness now, not differences, between the two books by Sean Tan. Okay, so how are they alike? Tan is an Australian author. He published Tales from Outer Suburbia, a book of 15 short stories. The stories describe surreal events occurring in otherwise ordinary suburban neighborhoods. In 2018, so 10 years later, he published Tales from the Inner City, a book of 25 short stories. The stories describe surreal events occurring in otherwise ordinary urban settings. So one's suburban, one's urban, that's different. They're both surreal, and they're both a series of short stories. So that's the similarity. And of course, they have the same author. So Tan's book, which describes surreal events in the otherwise ordinary places, contains fewer short stories. Now, that's a difference. Tales from Suburbia was published in 2008, the other in 2018. That's a difference. Unlike Tales from the Inner City, Tales from Suburbia set in suburbia. That's a difference. We want similarity. Sean's book, Tales and Tales from Inner City, both describe surreal events occurring in ordinary places. Yes. That's your answer. D. The student wants to emphasize a difference between surface-dwelling, cave-dwelling tetras, whatever a tetra is. So Mexican tetras are a fish. There we go. Species with two distinct populations. Surface-dwelling tetras live on the surface. They can see. Cave-dwelling tetras live in darkness and have lost the ability to see. So we want the differences between these tetras. Well, one lives on the surface, the other in essentially caves. One can see, the other has lost the ability to see. Okay? Cave-dwelling tetras, asymmetrical skulls, the more sensory receptors. These receptors help cave. That's just extra information about cave-dwelling. So surface-dwelling, cave-dwelling tetras may belong to the same, but they're different. No, that's not it. That's not emphasizing the differences. Cave-dwelling tetras can no longer see, but use sensory receptors. That's just about one of them, not the differences. We need two things to set up a difference, or a similarity. Mexican tetras are a fish species with two different populations. Surface-dwelling, okay, that's just setting up that there are two of them. Surface-dwelling can see, cave-dwelling cannot. That is the key difference. That's the answer, D. Student wants to emphasize the study's methodology. So we want to include the methodology here. So that's usually in the middle here. When medical students mention their patients on social media, they may violate patient confidentiality. Terry Kind led a study to determine how many medical students have student policies that mention social media use. Kind and her team interviewed 132 medical school websites, so this is their method, examining publicly available student policies. Only 13 medical schools had guidelines that explicitly mentioned social media, and 5 defined what constitutes acceptable social media. So which one talks about the methods? The student policies of 132 medical schools can be found online according to, yeah, but they examine the publicly available student policies. The student policies can be found online. I don't think this is fully right, but I'm not going to cross it out yet. To find out how many medical schools have guidelines about school social media use, Terry Kind and her team examined the student policies of 132 medical schools. So this says nothing about looking through their websites. Yeah, I'm going to not cross that out yet, but I think we need a little more than that. So she examined the student policy of 130. So they found it on the websites. They examined publicly available policies. I think this is better. Out of 132 medical schools, only 13 had student policies that mentioned, no, those are results. That's not method. Terry Kine and her team wanted to know how many medical schools have been. This is a purpose of the study, not the method. I think the best method, student policy, 132 medical schools, can be found online. That says nothing. It's just that it can be is not necessarily a method. A is not it. To find out how many have guidelines, their team examines, so this is a method of a study. They actually examine the policies of 132 medical schools. That's correct. B is the right answer.